In episode 4, Marissa is recuperating from getting her ass kicked by Hanna when she gets a phone call from Carmichael letting her know that they have Hanna. So Marissa heads to the Meadows to meet up with her. And during her drive, Carmichael tells her that she's going to have to stop and meet somebody who will then drive her to the Meadows as she's hooded in the back. She then asks Carmichael, "Does Hanna know I'm coming?" And Carmichael says no. To which Marissa says, "Good, let's keep it like that." She then pulls over on the side of the road and puts a tracking chip in a hollowed out lipstick container. She then pins her location to somebody named Mannion and intentionally crashes her car. And the reason she crashed her car is both twofold. One, to make an excuse for why her face looks like that, but two, to ditch her cell phone, because the cell phone is paired to the lipstick container. So when Mannion picks up the cell phone, he's able to pinpoint where the Meadows is and where Marissa is, as well as Hanna, because there's a picture of Hanna on her phone. Upon arriving at the Meadows, Carmichael tells Marissa, "I have something to show you," and takes her down to the control room. He goes to clear out the room, but right before he does, Marissa sees one of the soldiers there and sees his username as well as his password to the computer. He then logs out and gets out of the room, and it's just Carmichael and Marissa, and Carmichael has the videotape of Hanna breaking the facility from the other day, and he tells Marissa, "When we thought of this program, this is exactly what we envisioned." But Hanna isn't communicating, and they feel like Marissa could be the key to that. So Marissa comes into the room where Hanna's being held, and immediately Hanna wants to fight her. But Marissa tries her best to get the message to her that she's not an enemy. She has to be careful because the whole interaction is being recorded and seen via security camera footage. But she says things to her like, "It's been a while since I've seen you, you dyed your hair, it looks great." Marissa is trying her best to make it clear to Hanna that she is there to help her, and she asks, "Do you trust me?" And Hanna says, "Maybe." Hanna then gets put back into solitary confinement where she's met by Clara, and Clara was forced to meet her there because it was one of Hanna's requests, and Hanna isn't really cooperating at the moment, but Clara doesn't want to be there. The first thing she says to Hanna with a whole lot of attitude is, "Why did you even bother coming here?" And Hanna tells her, "I came here for you." Clara tells her that she's fine and wants to get out of there, but right before she leaves, Hanna says, "They told me that if you were okay with it, you'd show me around the grounds because I'm thinking about staying." And as Clara is showing Hanna around, she notices that she's been chipped. She also notices that people are calling her Clemency, and Clara says, "Yeah, that's my new name." And when she gets to Clara's room, she sees the photos of her fake family, and that's kind of the last straw for her. Hanna can't believe that Clara is buying into this lie. Eventually, Hanna is able to get Clara alone in a room that's supposed to be for staff only, that is one of the few places in the Meadows that doesn't have a security camera, and is able to talk to her one-on-one without the fear of being caught. The first thing Hanna does after hugging her and apologizing is to try to get the chip out of her arm, but Clara says, "No, you can't. They'll know." And Hanna says, "You don't want me to take it out, do you? I mean, look at you. Look at the way you're dressed. This isn't you." And Clara says, "Well, they do it to everybody. I mean, they're going to do it to you too." And Hanna shoots back, "No, they're not. I'm not here to become one of you guys. I'm here to get you out." Hanna then goes on to tell her about the plan to get to Canada. And she also tells her that Marissa Viegler is in the facility and is there to help them. And all they have to do is get out of the Meadows. At this point, though, security is wondering where they are and they're banging on the door. And Hanna needs an answer. And Clara says, "Okay, fine, I'll go with you." Now, as Hanna was making her impassioned plea to Clara, Jules and Sandy were trying to grab some booze because Leo had let it slip that they were having an alcohol shipment delivered there that day, and Jules wants to throw a party. So Sandy distracts the driver by flirting with him a little bit, and Jules grabs the alcohol. Once they get out of there, though, the security guy radios to the control room, "Hey, all clear," because that whole thing was set up by Leo. He wants the girls to get into a little bit of mischief because that's what normal girls do. Later that day, both Marissa and Carmichael meet with Hanna, and Hanna agrees to give the Meadows a shot. And Carmichael tells her, "Great, we'll get you a new identity and we'll start to get you integrated with the other girls." But during this meeting, Marissa is able to pass a note to Hanna that tells her that they're planning on leaving that night at 10 p.m. So be ready. So right after the meeting, they go and they introduce Hanna to all the other girls with her new name, Mia Wolf. Her new identity is currently being built, but one of the things is going to be that she's from Germany. And most of the girls remember Hanna from trying to break them out of the Utrecht facility, and some of them are a little standoffish towards her. Later that day, Hanna goes through her first lesson, face and trigger. And it's a pretty simple concept. The face and trigger are two people that know each other, although they're supposed to pretend that they don't. The face distracts people, while the trigger ends up doing the job. And the lesson is being watched by Marissa and Carmichael. And Marissa is kind of patting herself on the back saying, "This is great. She has a family here. My job is done. I guess I'll head out tonight." But Carmichael wants to hire her back because they're so close to finishing this thing. And Marissa says, "Well, if you hire me back, are you going to tell me the truth? Are you going to tell me who's funding this thing?" And the answer to that is no. So Marissa says, "Okay, well, I'm leaving tonight. Can you facilitate a ride?" Now, after that lesson, Clara and Hanna headed to the cafeteria where privately Hanna tells Clara that the plan is to leave at 10 p.m. And Clara tells Hanna, "Well, that's going to be tough to do because there's lockdown at 9. The private conversation, though, is interrupted because they arrive at the table with both Jules, Sandy, and Helen. And Jules tells all the girls that there's going to be a party in her room that night because they've gotten alcohol. Helen says, well, what happens if we get caught? I mean, what happens if Leo catches us? And Jules says, don't worry about Leo. I've got him wrapped around my finger. The next lesson they go to, though, is target practice. And Hanna asks Clara, all right, explain this lockdown procedure. And she says, well, at 9 o'clock, they lock the doors and they turn the cameras off. And if you try to leave the accommodation block, alarms will go off. And one of the reasons why Jules can have a party after 9 o'clock is because her room is in the accommodation block. So Hanna thinks about it and says, okay, I'll figure out a way. Right after target practice, Leo catches up with Hanna and says, hey, let me show you to your new room. And it's pretty bare bones, and he apologizes for that, saying that they'll make it more homey. But right as he's about to leave, he says, by the way, I saw what you did in the security camera footage yesterday. Very impressive. Now, as Hanna was getting acclimated to her new room, Sandy, who was walking with a couple friends, notices that Clara is sitting by herself under a tree, and she just looks bothered about something. So Sandy, trying to be a good friend, heads over there to find out what's bothering her, and Clara lets it slip that Hanna isn't there to be integrated. Hanna is there to escape, and she's trying to break out tonight with Clara. Later that night, Carmichael tells Marissa that her ride is there, and Marissa asks him, hey, would you mind it if I saw Hanna one last time? And Carmichael says, sure, why not? So Leo and Marissa head up to the girls' rooms, and they catch them having that party, although nobody even mentions it. Marissa tells Hanna that there's a car collecting her that night, and it seems like she's got a good thing going, so best of luck. And right before she leaves, Hanna says, well, be careful, because after 9 o'clock, they turn on the alarm system. Leo assures the room that, don't worry, I'll take care of that. But right before he leaves, he pops his head back in and says, oh, by the way, good job getting the booze. Face and Trigger, Sandy, you were amazing. And all of the girls are amazed that Leo is cool with this and even set it up, except for Jules, who seems pissed off that she just got played. Because it turns out she was the one who was actually wrapped around Leo's finger. But that hint that Hanna gave to Marissa was a useful one, because Leo drops Marissa off at the front door, and he thinks that, all right, she's going to get in the car and leave, but she doesn't. She's able to get back in the facility and head to the control room, where she sees that soldier whose password she poached earlier, and she tells the soldier, hey, Carmichael's looking for you. So the soldier leaves, and she ends up using that username and password to get into the system and forces a power outage that's set to go off in 3 minutes. She then gets in the car, and when they get to the front gate, the driver has her put the hood on, but instead of putting the hood on, she ends up killing the driver. She hops in the passenger seat and races back to the meadows to pick up both Clara and Hanna, who, when the power went out, did in fact escape. Or so they thought. They're trying to find their way out, but to no luck. And when somebody gets in the car, Marissa thinks this is great, it's Hanna and Clara, but in fact, it's Carmichael, because Clara ratted them out. And eventually, Clara and Hanna end up back in their rooms, and Hanna is pissed, yelling, what did you just do? But Clara says, well, why can't you just be happy here? As her and the rest of the girls slowly converge on Hanna as she gets claustrophobic and shocked that she might actually have to stay there. Thank you for watching this recap. If you do not see the next one up in the corner right there on the end screen, don't worry, it'll be up shortly. Please consider following the channel. That'd be cool. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you don't, there's a thumbs down button for a reason.